Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Greetings, family, and welcome back to Raising the Vibe. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. As always, I really appreciate your time and your attention. In this video, I wanted to discuss what in the world is going on with Kenya right now. There have been so many changes in Kenya since that new President Ruto took office that it now seems to me that Kenya is just wide open to the West. And in every area you look, it seems like Kenya's up for sale, Kenya's open for business, Kenya's wide open. Before we get into it, as always, I'll ask that you subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification bell if you want to know when I upload new content, and definitely click that thumbs up button if you like this video and find it informative. As those of you may know, Kenya has this new President Ruto, who really just seems to be a puppet of the West. Let's take a look at it and get into this. So for about a decade, William Ruto was deputy president, and Ruto was sworn in as the new president of Kenya in September of 2022. Here's a clip showing that. Then we saw right around that same time in September of 2022 that Kenya lifted its decade-long ban on GMO foods. Here's a clip of a TikTok video I did back in September of 2022, and I've highlighted the date to show that. So that was the first step. Ruto's in, GMO foods are in. Now, in 2023, Bill Gates began advocating for a digital ID program in Kenya. And in late 2023, Kenya, under President Ruto, announced that it would launch the digital ID program for its citizens. And according to media in Kenya, the role of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was announced after several closed-door meetings with President Ruto. Now, initially, a mere month after the rollout of that plan, Kenya's High Court put a stop to it and paused implementation of it, citing concerns with data security. However, in February of this year, 2024, the High Court lifted its injunction, and now that digital ID program in Kenya is going to move forward. The program is called, and I don't know how to speak Swahili. It's been a while since I was in Tanzania, so I'm imagining my pronunciation will be off. But the program is called Maisha Namba, with Maisha being the Swahili word for life and Namba being number. And as that title implies, it is indeed intended to be a life number. Apparently, about 60,000 Kenyans applied for the digital ID before the High Court issued the injunction. So now those people will be allowed to receive their digital ID. I mean, that's one thing for grown people to decide, hey, give me a digital ID. I want to use my iris and my fingerprints and all of that to be tracked and monitored every single place I go. But the part that's really horrible to me is that now all newborns in Kenya will be issued one of these numbers for use in their birth certificate, which will be used when they go to register for governmental services such as school and healthcare services. And then when they turn 18, that number will become their Maisha card number to track them for life. Now, I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, that's exactly what the American government did to us Americans here in this country with that social security number. They began assigning that number at birth, connecting it with our footprint, and then requiring us to utilize it all throughout our life. School, credit, jobs, everything is tied to that social security number. And that's bad enough. But this Maisha number will allow, which I'm going to say require, Kenyan citizens to verify their identity using biometric identifiers, such as their fingerprints, the irises of their eyes, and it will even use facial recognition technology. So that takes this number to an entirely different level. But William Ruto, who appears, from what I can tell, to be a puppet of the West, is all on board. So we've got GMO foods being allowed into the country, which, as I pointed out in my TikTok video, many Kenyans were against. Now we've got the rollout of digital IDs that will use facial recognition, fingerprints, and irises to have Kenyans verify their identity and to be a number that will travel along with Kenyans for life. And also that card will include, that Maisha Namba card will include a smart chip, I guess like our credit cards, and they can add it to their phones, and just an all-encompassing number that's just going to follow them, follow the newborns from the day they were born, and then be assigned to actual Kenyan adults as time moves forward. And so we have the 60,000 adults who applied for that Maisha number, which they're welcome to have. Again, adults are free to be monitored, controlled, manipulated in any way they choose. My concern is for the newborns, as well as for the people who have not applied, which would tend to indicate either they didn't have time to, or they don't have an interest in it. But the government intends to phase out the more traditional IDs over the next 3 to 5 years. So the intent is that all Kenyans, both newborn and older, will be tracked, monitored, and identified by these digital IDs. And then on top of that, we have all of these various hotels that are being built in Kenya. And I want to shout out Dr. Mumbi Saraki for bringing this to our awareness, that in 2024, they're planning to build 31 new hotels in Kenya. Of course, I looked it up and I saw that apparently last year there were 25 new hotels in Kenya. Take a look at this clip. And as that clip showed, there were 24 new units in 2022, 25 new hotels planned for 2023. And then, as I mentioned, 31 new hotels planned for 2024. And when you look at the names, there are names like Hilton, Best Western Hotel Group, Thailand Hotel Groups, nothing indigenous, at least that I can see. And again, we must remember that William Ruto came into office in September of 2022. So it seems like all of this is coinciding with the installation of this new President Ruto. And as far as I can tell, his mantra is Kenya is wide open for business, for Western conventions, for Western testing, because the digital ID thing is going to be a test situation for Kenya. And then to really indicate that Kenya is wide open to the West now, we have this African Development Bank that has adopted a 5-year plan to boost growth and human development in Kenya. And there's a 5-year strategy. They're going to focus on infrastructure development, which I mean is a good thing, strategic reforms, which in my mind can include things like digital IDs, which may not be such a good thing, and then human capital development, which is giving skills to Kenyan citizens or residents in order to be able to work in these new industries. The 4 areas that they're going to focus on are transport, water, economic governance, and skill development. And I want to be clear that I do not think that building up infrastructure, preparing citizens or residents to work in new industries, and that sort of thing is negative as long as it is indigenous and grows organically in the country. But the problem that a lot of African countries face is that they are encouraged to accept all of these hundreds of millions of dollars of loans, and they can't really service the debt. I did a video, it had to be at least more than a year ago, on Zambia defaulting on its debt and having the Chinese take over things like the national broadcasting system and the airports. So while it sounds good at the outset, and while it is a good thing to build up and to develop a country, it needs to take place in a way that is sustainable and that will not ultimately harm the particular country. So to me, what Ruto is doing to Kenya has the potential to cause enormous harm down the road. And another reason this is significant to me is because Black folk in the diaspora go to countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, and others to get away from the high level of stress that comes with this capitalistic society that we have in the West, the monitoring and tracking that they do of us, and all of that sort of thing. Well, a lot of people from the diaspora went to Kenya. There are a large number of diasporans over there in Kenya. And I just wonder, how is that going to play out? Kenya is now adopting and getting into the very things that these people left the West to escape. So that's one country down, thanks to Ruto. I mean, I have some comments about Ghana and maybe a few other countries as well, but right now we're focused on Kenya. And I am concerned that once Ruto got in office, we see that he's allowing GMO foods into the country. We see that he's establishing digital IDs. We see that he's allowing large numbers of hotels to be built in the country. And we see that Kenya appears to be wide open and over the next 5 years is going to be highly developed. So we see these things going on in Kenya, and I can't help but wonder why now all of a sudden all of these things are happening. And in my mind, the worst of all of them is the digital IDs. It's a tracking system that cannot be helpful for human beings who want to live in peace and without being controlled and monitored every step of the way by a government. So keep an eye out for Kenya. Keep Kenya in your prayers. And then the final thing, which I haven't mentioned, but which a lot of conscious people are pointing out, is that there's an obelisk now in Kenya on Haile Selassie Avenue. The point being that among folks who are really conscious, that's viewed as a sign of Freemasonry. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but there are obelisks in 3 other central locations that are thought to be control centers for, let's say, the globalists. Let's call them that. And now there's one in Kenya as well. So that has raised some concerns. I'm not going to say anything else about that, but I will say that I am concerned about what's happening in Kenya, that it appears that Ruto is nothing more than a puppet of the West, and that from all indications, he has signaled that Kenya is wide open for business in terms of whatever the West wants to do over there. So we need to be alert and be aware of what's happening in Kenya. People need to factor in these new developments when deciding whether or not to relocate to Kenya. And for all of those Kenyans and diasporans who are already in Kenya, we offer our support. And I hope, I can't say what we do, I offer my support, and I hope that things turn out in a way that is to their benefit, that any of these programs like GMO foods, that's not to anybody's benefit. Having a Bill Gates encouraged and assisted digital ID program, I don't see how that benefits any of them. Those kinds of things, I hope they're dismantled, they don't work out, so that Kenyans and diasporans in Kenya can live in peace. But we will see. I will keep an eye on these and bring up any new developments. If my viewers are aware of any other things happening in Kenya that one should be aware of, please let me know. If appropriate, I'll do a video on those as well. And as I mentioned, I'm likely to do a video on Ghana, because even though it is still a magnet for people in the diaspora and seems to be working well for many of them, there are a number of things that are going on over there that cause me to raise an eyebrow. But that's it for this video, because this video is really about Kenya. And family, as always, I will say until next time, peace and love, love and light.
Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.